So 10 o'clock in Switzerland. Welcome to the next broncolor webinar, e-commerce photography. It's today what we talk about. I don't know if you joined us like a week ago. I've been talking about the Ceros monolights, comparing them, all the features with the Scoro and the lamp heads. What are the benefits from the two systems? And today we use actually the two systems. We have e-commerce setup for still life photography here. On the right side, I will talk about this first. I will obviously guide you through the entire lighting setup, and then after this, I will check questions. So if you have any specific questions, let's say in the first session about still life photography, e-commerce photography, let us know. I will have a quick look at the chat and answer the questions that are more or less related to the subject. And then today, I'm not alone in the studio. It's not only me and the two setups, but it's as well Tanya that we have here. So she will help me to get nice pictures during the second shoot, which is e-commerce fashion setup. With as a main light, I will be using the Para. I don't know if you see this from this perspective already, in quite a strange angle. Of course, here as well, I will explain you why I use which light and at what angle, at what distance. We will shoot light by light. And of course, in the end, the summary of all the lights together to let you see how this looks. So this will happen, I don't know, in something like 20, 25 minutes after we ended discussion over here. Right, and of course, after this session, I will sit again quickly behind the laptop and have a look if there are more questions coming in. If, however, you would like to ask me anything else, maybe not related to e-commerce photography, either still life or fashion, if you have something else about lighting, remember that on Friday afternoon, 2 p.m. Swiss time, I will be here in the studio again and answering on Instagram Live all your questions you might have about the studio lighting, light shapers, and so on. All right, so this means short break for you. Don't leave, I need you. And we start talking about this setup. For this, I will reposition the camera quickly, that you see this better, probably something like this. Yeah, okay, I want you to see as well the background light, which is a box. Does it make sense? Thank you, Tanya. All right, perfect. Okay, so I think it makes sense to let you see light by light, which means I start with the background. Okay, so I have to be here, then you see me as well. Sorry. Okay, shooting light by light. So let's switch main light off. Let's switch top light off. And let's shoot the background light only. Let me talk about the background light. What you see, very narrow from the perspective. The background in the end is going to be this acrylic plate. It has a high optical density, so the opacity is very high. And what's the reason for this? You could say the softbox has the same size, so why don't you use the softbox directly? I don't want to burn like crazy, okay, this background. It could be that I have a shiny object there, or even, let's say, a white object. We will shoot, by the way, a white object later on. So this background should be just white. What is just white? Just white in RGB values is maybe a 250 something, 253, 254. If it's a 255, talking about the 8-bit RGB file numbers, with 255, it could be 10 f-stops overexposed. And then, of course, I would have a lot of flare, lower color saturation, and so on. So I take care that this background is just white, okay, clean white, that I don't have any texture. And because I'm not overexposing it like crazy, I'm kind of cleaning the softbox. I explained it during the webinars about softboxes, that our softboxes are extremely evenly lit, but still they are textile light shapers. And if I don't burn them, we might see the texture, we might see at the corners that they are wrinkled a little bit. So it's just a good idea that if we actually use it as a background, that we kind of clean the light with an acrylic plate. Above here, just, I don't know yet if I will use it, a black textile, a black cloth. So if I have a reflecting object, I might want to cover a certain part of my acrylic just to block the light, because in the end I only need white background behind the object. So we leave this here, most probably out of the frame, and the first picture I'm going to shoot is background only. I'm shooting this with a medium format camera, focal length 120 millimeters, so slightly longer than normal. The longer lens is a very good idea in this situation because it narrows the picture angle. And this means that I can work with this background further away from the set. Imagine if you work with a wide angle lens, then you have to bring in the background because your picture angle is wider, and then in the end this is like a light source, this is like a softbox, so you bring it closer in, and then sooner or later it will have an effect on the object, and I don't want this. It's only supposed to be a background light without any effect on the object. And the long focal length allows me to put it further away. That is really only the background. And of course, no matter how far away it is, it doesn't change the brightness. I can put it 20 meters away, it just becomes smaller, but of course it doesn't change the brightness because I shoot directly the light source. So let me shoot this 120 millimeter macro lens, medium format camera, f16, so quite closed, 125 of a second, but this is actually irrelevant. So let's see how my background looks like. And for this, I'm going to share the corresponding screen with you, which is now active. And that's the one I want to show you. All right, let me check if you see this. Yes, there we go. Okay, good. So I would like to see it as well, what I'm doing. All right. Okay, so background looks almost white, huh? Which is good news because I will have, of course, additional lights. I will have the top light, the big octa box from the top. And of course, I will have the main light as well, the small octa coming here from the side. So this makes a lot of sense. What's really interesting now, from a lighting point of view, is that the table where the shoes are actually standing on is already quite white. And that's because I'm using a shiny acrylic. Okay, so I'm not, the table in the end is not white because I have light on the table, but because it's reflecting the background. Those that have joined me during the Light and Skin webinar, you will remember that the lower the camera, so the flatter the camera angle, the brighter the background will be, the underground will be, sorry, okay? So the height of the camera has an influence on the amount of light being reflected on my table. But in most situations, I can't really change this, so that's pretty much given. I can't, this is not something creatively that I can say, okay, I would like to shoot it vertically. Most of the time, this is the client that tells me where the camera has to be or what perspective he wants to have on his object. Okay, so this one seems to be under control. Let's switch it off. And I would like to let you see the main light, which is here, Ceros 400L. So it's for once, it's not because I'm lazy, because there are a lot of power outlets on the other side. It's just because I want to show to you that you can easily combine Ceros S that have to be plugged in on the wall from the mains. This as well is a Ceros S, but this is a Ceros L, L for lithium or for location, but I use it as well in the studio. So I have a mixed I really mix all kind of zeros, 800S, 400S, 400L, so they're obviously absolutely compatible and can be used in the same set. So let's have a look what this one is doing. The only difference is the zeros L switches off the modeling light after a couple of minutes. And this is, of course, just to save battery time. And whenever you press actually the button, when you expose the next photograph, the modeling light will turn on again. But if I just leave it like this, then the camera, the light thinks, okay, there's nothing happening. Probably my modeling light is not used, and then we save battery time for you. Let's have a look what this one is doing to my set. The set, I start with something in between, okay, something easy going. It's not white, it's not black, it's a little bit shiny, so it's actually quite easy one to go. Later on, I will change to a black object. I will change to a completely white object, actually to check and to prove that this kind of light setup works on pretty much everything. Okay, now what we see is that my background is a reflective acrylic as well. Most of my acrylics that I use in the studio are shiny, because often I use them like this, that I want to work with the reflections. In this situation, it could be kind of a disadvantage, but as soon as I switch on my background light again, I mean, if the background light illuminates the background already white, and then I add more light, it's just more white, but once it's white, so there's no extra white or whatever. So let's combine the two lights, and this, of course, cleans the background. If we want to give each light a function, obviously, that's clear. Okay, that's the background. Then this is I might even call this one the main light. This is just a light that comes vertically down. It's a huge octabox. It's the Octabox 150. So it's a kind of round, circular softbox. And this is the basic light. It's as well quite close to the object. It's huge and close to the object. This means it's so easy going. So again, I have to refer to the webinar about light and skin. The closer you get with a light to the object, the more you can actually fight unpleasant reflections. So this is just a basic illumination that shows the object, not in the most attractive light, but at least we can see what it is. We don't run into any problems with shine and so on. But to make the light a little bit more fun and to work out the three-dimensionality of the object, I add here a smaller octabox that comes from the side that gives the light a certain direction. That's the light you see until now. So let's switch on the top light. And shoot them all together. Right. Good. You see, it helps as well the underground. Let me jump back quickly to let you see what the last one actually did. So, of course, the smaller octa, so that's where we added the small octa. We have the reflection in the background, and the small octa, of course, is, just does not illuminate the entire set bright enough. Here we would have to do some retouching as well, if we want to have it without the horizon. And this softbox just comes from the top, adds as well some light here, cleans the background on the other side. And this is actually pretty much the setup I'm going to use. The idea is that we can put there any object, either we or a stylist, let's say on a 3 minutes pace, like 20 pictures an hour or something like this. Press the button, maybe refocus, press the button, bam, done, good. Maybe just repositioned quickly, but that we have a quite high pace of photographs. As I said, something like every 2-3 minutes we take a photograph. And that's absolutely the pace that Xerox can have all day, all week, all month, all year. Okay, because just these couple of seconds between the exposures, or these couple of minutes between exposures, that's by far enough time to cool down, even if the modeling light is on. So for e-commerce productions, even high volume e-commerce productions on the product side, I don't see any limitation to use Xerox. Light shaper wise, softbox, octabox, fully compatible. Even if I would, let's say, like later on, change to a para as well, this is possible and compatible with the Xerox system. Right. Okay. What I wanted to explain. So this is a light that actually works on pretty much all surfaces, all shapes, all different kind of shine on the surfaces. Nevertheless, there are tiny adaptations that I can make to the light that don't cost me any time because I have them already ready. And you see now we have a top light background and the main light comes from the right. So it could be that the shoes are a little dark on the left. Could be as well, it's more like a creative decision. Do you want to have a lower contrast? And if yes, if you would like to see the brown of the shoes more clearly on the left side, just a simple cardboard, you put it there, because it's angled here, it stands by itself. So it's an action that takes 2 seconds. And if I press the button again, you will immediately see on the left that we have a little bit of more light there. It's not disturbing. It's not like an active additional light that bam comes in from the other side. It's just a tiny fill-in on the other side. If it's already too much, very easy. You take it a little bit further away. Thanks to the long focal length of the camera, of course, you can as well go very, very close with it. It will not show up in the picture yet, I hope. Yeah, just a little bit, but we are cropping it anyway later on. So there you are, super, super fast. And we already have, let's say, the first photograph of our series. Good, so I take this one away because I would like to work with a higher contrast on the next shot. Here, this is not decoration, I used this before. The gray card, so I already made a gray balance. By the way, that's why I just saved the time and didn't do it again. But now you could say, okay, that's wonderful on these brown shoes, but what if we have something that which is white? Because white object on a white background might be a different story. And for this, I'm going to make a typical Packshot. And guess what brand I'm using for this? I'm going to shoot a couple of broncolor boxes. White boxes, obviously with the broncolor blue. Just put it in the set. And possibly in the center of the photograph. Something like this. Checking. Okay. Yep. And press the button. Good. No adjustments. Okay, it's a little bright now on the right. Yeah, you see this? Little bright on the right. I turned this. I just tilt this softbox a little bit. Exactly. So no adjustment on the power. Just tilting it a little bit because most probably I touched it before. So I don't touch the power. So I'm not going to play with different settings. If I just see, oh, there's a little bit too much light hitting from the right, I just tilt the softbox away a little bit. You have seen this several times during these webinars that in most situations, my light shapers are not aiming straight to the model or to the object. And here, that's exactly the same situation. The octabox, the light is more or less centered here. And I use the little bit of fall of the softbox just to get me somewhat more detail here in the first box, which has really the worst case scenario, the white side, bam, directly to the light. And by just tilting it a tiny little bit, it already helps. Good. You might, most probably we already see now the effect of my little black cloth here. let's say I take it away and shoot quickly again. I guess that we might have a little bit more reflection here on the top box. It's not too bad. Okay, so that we have here a nice separation here on the top actually depends, or is the reason is that it does properly separate to the background because here it's the end of the acrylic. So this actually reflects the non-illuminated background behind the acrylic. Yes. Okay. Right. Okay. So it already works on 2 different subjects. Let's go for the other worst case. If we can shoot white, black, and something in between, like the shiny shoes, if we manage these 3 objects, these 3 surfaces, we are pretty much on the safe side. So put these again away. And basically, if you look at the photograph, the only thing I have to make is a cropping. Okay, so I crop it properly, export, and these pictures are ready to go online. Okay, so the 2 minutes rhythm, or the 3 minutes rhythm of shooting photographs, it's not only to have a fancy photograph, but that has to be retouched and readjusted because the brightness is changing and the color looks differently all the time. No, these are photographs. What I'm producing here, these are photographs that can go online the next minute. Okay, out of camera, that's the goal, that we are not wasting any time in post-production after taking the photograph. And that's why our lights are the best partners for you, because the power outlet is super constant. The color is as well absolutely constant. So once I adjust this properly, just bam, 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 one shot after another, and out of camera, export, crop it, online. Okay, so we help you saving time. We help you saving time from the moment you or your client receive the good until the good is ready and can be bought on an e-commerce website. Good. Last one for this. The other worst scenario, black shoes. Put them in the middle of the photograph, the middle of the set, more or less exactly. Refocusing, I mean at 16, I didn't even refocus before. At 16, if I don't put it all the way to the front, it's actually sharp. So this was quite okay. No adjustments, not even the angle, just press button again. And let's have a look what happens. Good. Okay, so again, it's a light that, because we are working with, okay, I could have taken this one out, small detail, so I don't know what's the word in English, the one that keeps the shoe in shape. But because we are working with large octaboxes, we have here pleasant gradations, pleasant reflections here as well. We see that the shoe, we feel the material of the shoe. We have nice here, due to the top light, we have nice shadows here that illustrate the three-dimensionality, because the main light, the small octa comes from the right. We create here a little bit more reflection. Okay, and the last thing I want to show about this is as well a kind of a little bit of customization. Here, it's a very shiny shoe, and that's exactly the reason why I told you that the background should not be far overexposed. So now, even when the background reflects like crazy on the shoe, it's not burnt, it's not white. It just shows it's a little bit brighter, obviously. And if we have the time, we don't have to, let's say, spend time on post-production regarding the color, regarding the power outlet. We just have to remove something out of the white background. I'm really not good at Photoshop, but even for me, this is like a 10-second thing. What I'm talking about is this hammer, okay, which has a white side for a fill-in light if somewhere it's too dark, and the black side, like this situation, if it's somewhere too bright. And it's with an extension arm, because I'm using a long lens, and poor me, no assistant. I don't want to torture Tanya for this. She comes later on. But with this, I can go more or less to the camera position and then block some of this light that comes from back there. Then I take the head off, shoot, and I solve this problem here. Right, okay, let me compare. This was before. Not, yeah, it's kind of acceptable because it's not completely burned, but anyway, I prefer a contour like this. You know, if it's a black object, I don't want that we change the contours too much, so that's why I add this little black thing there. And if you have a look at the entire shot, you see how easy this is to be retouched. If either you just take it with the clone tool, you remove it with the clone tool, or of course the other way would be that we take another one, another shot without this black thing there, and just copy paste, or we just overlay, use masks. You probably know these techniques better than I do. All right, so if you have any questions about this, please type in your questions right now. I will make a summary of the setup, answer the questions, and then we jump into fashion. Right, okay, so I started the other way around. Top light. Big octabox, 150 centimeters diameter. Side light, smaller octabox, 75 centimeters diameter. Why octaboxes? If you have a single object, like just a shoe, okay, as well, soft boxes would work. But maybe the little house of boxes I built before, if you have shadows within the setup, let me unshare the screen. All right, good. So why octaboxes? If you have shadows within the set, so you have several boxes or several objects, and there are shadows visible, they are just more pleasant, they are more logical if we have round main lights. So that's why I went for octaboxes in this situation. The big one here, main light, the basic exposure, it's bright, okay? And then I give some direction to the light with a smaller octabox. Smaller always means more aggressive, means more visibility in the photograph, as well means a little bit of shine. So this is the smaller one is responsible to work out the material, that I feel the material, and to work out as well three-dimensionality. Very simply technical, not creative, is the background. The background, remember, this just goes to this just white level. So if you can read the RGB values, it would just be somewhere around 250, 252, 253. Then you know there are no more details, it's clean. If you do not have the possibility to analyze the RGB values, what you do, you work with this light first, and then you see this unpleasant reflection in the background, and then you go high and high and high and high with the background. And if there's no more difference between the reflection of the small octa and the background itself, then you know that you reach this level of burning the background information. Don't go any higher after this, because it doesn't bring anything else. If it's white, it's white. There's no extra white, okay? So this is that's why I say this light is purely technical, that we just approach this just white level. Right, good. So this was about this. Now let me check if there are some questions. For this, I'm going already now to rotate the camera. Does this make more or less sense, Tanya, what you see here? Good, thanks. Ja, schon gut. Okay, right, okay. Explain. Okay, the first question I just answered, again. If you have, let's go to the other extreme. If we talk about the strip light shaped softbox. So let's say this is the opposite. This is the opposite of an octabox. It's an extreme long softbox. And of course, we would have completely different shadows from the horizontal diffuser. This is not bigger than a P70, than a normal reflector. So even if the light is diffused, it's still hard because the light source is just very small left, right. On the other hand, here we have a huge softbox because it's 1 meter and 20 centimeters. So this softbox is only soft vertically, but it remains hard horizontally. This means if you, for example, use it as a portrait light on me, you will have kind of strange shadows. Okay, let's say under my nose down here, we will have very soft shadows, but then left of my nose, I would have a very hard shadows. If you turn it around, it's the opposite story, obviously. So rectangular softboxes, the slimmer they are, the fancier the shadows become. That's why these softboxes, most of the time I use them as backlights, as a hair light behind me, okay? But I don't see any shadow of this light on the model's face. So then, of course, it's absolutely, that makes a lot of sense. If we go from this softbox to a rectangular softbox, let's say a 160 by 100, or what I'm using here, a 90-120, it's still the case that it's long in one direction and a little short in the other direction. So we still have a slight difference between the shadows, but it's strictly rectangular. So, for example, if I shoot somebody with a color, you know, a business portrait, a guy in a suit with a shirt and so on, we might get some strange shadows here inside the color. Or if you shoot a group, it's the same story. So that's why I said, if shadows are clearly seen from this softbox on my object, I always choose octaboxes because they have the same light characteristic. If I turn this a couple of degrees, nobody really cares, okay? The light remains the same, okay? And this means that the shadows look very logical and pleasant. All right, good, this about this. How much shadow is enough for Packshot? Exactly. How much shadow? I think, I mean, the question is probably how dark should the shadows be? We are not talking about the area which is in the shadow, but how dark are these shadows? In e-commerce photography, I think the most important thing is that we have to show the object as much information about the object as possible. The beautiful photograph, in my eyes, that's more like a commercial photography job. But then I spent 4 hours on these shoes, maybe 3 hours only when I have a good day and enough coffee. All right, but in e-commerce photography, it's information. Information is the key point. I have to show most accurately the color, what I explained before with the shoe. How much shine do I have on this material? Is it? Can I feel the leather shoe? Does the leather look real? So I have to put a lot of information in, and that's why personally I work with rather low contrast. Okay, but this is definitely a creative decision, and this is one of the only parameters that I'm changing during the shooting. So when it's something dark, maybe here I could have used it as well. So just add this white board to the other side, maybe even as a backlight a little bit, so you get a little bit of an illuminated edge. That as well will give more information about the surface and the object. But in general, I think we can say these are huge lights close to the object, and this means that the shadow is rather, first of all, it's soft and rather low contrast, because I would like to show as much information on the product that my client does not get a lot of returns, because it looks, when you have it in your hand, all of a sudden, oh, it's not shiny, I thought it's shiny, or oh, this green looks different. So that's why color reproduction is so important. So that's why the broncolor technology of ECTC, so this enhanced color temperature control over the entire power range, is so important, that what we see in the photograph is as close as possible to the object in real life, and this every 2 minutes. All right, so why can't a para be used for product photography? It can be used for product photography. E-commerce photography, if what I showed here is many different surfaces, shiny leather, rather matte leather, black, white objects, photographs with shadows, photographs without shadows. So I wanted to have the most flexible solution. That's why I went without the para in this situation, because it could have maybe given some unpleasant reflections on my white shiny boxes, and then I would have to modify the light. And with the soft boxes, I know that even if they shine, I can, with just tilting them a little bit, I can already take, I can get rid of these unpleasant reflections. However, if I have a series, I get 100 walking boots, maybe, okay? Leather, Gore-Tex, textile, nothing shiny, texture is very essential, then I would still keep this one, but I would replace the main light, that giving shape and texture, with a para, okay? Because the para has more aggressivity, shows more texture, but then I have to be sure that I don't have all of a sudden something very shiny there. Even, let's say, the black shoe, I'm not sure if the black shoe would have worked with the para, to be honest, okay? And with the softbox, I'm absolutely on the safe side. But as I said, if you have jeans, just you know that your client is going to bring you 150 jeans, okay? Then para is the best choice, because you defocus para, the light becomes three-dimensional, super crispy, works out really the texture of the jeans much better than this light here. But then I have to make sure, or I have to be sure, that I keep on working on textile or on comparable surfaces. Not that all of a sudden I have a black leather pants there, because then it doesn't work. But generally in commercial photography, there's absolutely nothing wrong about the para. Okay. Where could I buy the panel which is near the camera? You buy, most probably you're talking about this one, huh? Exactly. Thanks for the question. I forgot to mention it. I'm shooting through this black window because a softbox has a light angle of 180 degrees, so of course my lens gets some light from this. Here I have a lot of light, straight into the lens. So whenever I have backlight situation, whenever I have softboxes or any light shaper in an angle that could hit my front lens, I'm using this. You could say, yeah, but you have your lens shade. Yes, they are nice. I put them on as well. They are, for me, they are front lens protection, but they do not work precisely enough to get rid of this light. So that's why this is just enhanced lens shade in the end, lens protection, that I can increase or limit all flare. Okay, but you see, it's strictly handmade, so it's really do-it-yourself shop. Cover it with something as black as possible. I cut off the corners that it fits better in my suitcase, because wherever I go, I always have this baby with me. I like to work with backlights, either white backgrounds or just backlights on the model. So I always have this baby with me. Right. Let me check. Okay, which number did you put on the Zeros? Let me check this quickly. I can show you. This one is a little annoying to change the power there, so that's why I've been working with the, as you call it, with the bronc control. And that's how I end. I hope, Tanya, can you tell me if you see it properly? Yeah, okay. So these are the settings. So nothing, I'm shooting at 16, f16. So the 400L, the L. This one is on 9, so the main light, this one is on power 9, which means that it is a 400, it's 200 joules on that one. The background is on power 8. Yes, it's 800, so this is 200 joules as well. And then from the top, we have the weakest power. It's a 400S exactly at 6.7. So this is a little less than 200. So it's a total set of about 500 joules, and by far enough to shoot at f16. Okay, so power 9, 7.6, and 8 here. Now I still want to go back to, yes, to see what we are doing. All right, I hope this works still. Don't care too much about the numbers, okay? Care about the photographs, okay? So just go up and down with the power, because first you choose the aperture. Now I went for 16 because I didn't want to have any issue with depth of field and so on. So I just went for the 16, and in the end, it was first of all a visible control. Do I like it? A little bit more, a little bit less. Of course, if you start with this 200, 150, you get something reasonable, okay? But then don't think that if you're copying any setup, if it's this one or any setup you find in books, if you copy this, that you get the same result. Always, it's much easier than you think. Open your eyes, look what happens in front of the camera. And if you have, like in this situation, the possibility to analyze the RGB files, the RGB values in your file, of course, then you can work super precisely. Can we use the broncolor F160 LED lights with the same setup? Yes, absolutely. No restriction at all. And to replace here the lights with LEDs. The only thing that I would do, now I have just next to the camera that I'm filming everything, there are 800 watts of continuous light. So the studio is actually quite bright. And of course, if you work with 160 watt LEDs, this probably requires that you have to dim the environmental light. So for example, the studio lights are on as well. Of course, if you want to work as controllable as with your flashes, with your LED lights, then you have to make sure that the rest of the environment is rather dark. There's maybe one more advantage for flash. If you have, let's say, e-commerce production, that we have a second set here, and the fourth set here, and the third set here, okay? The LEDs, of course, this LED as well emits some light over there. This LED throws some light over there, okay? So you most probably have to build like walls. You have to protect the different sets from each other. However, you have to be very unlucky. If you put your 3 or your 4 Ceros sets on different synchronization channels, you have to be very unlucky that at the moment when you take the picture here, that this guy or this girl is exactly exposing at the same moment. So you can have with flash, you can have the next completely independent set here already, and the third set here, because they are not interfering, because you can forget about the ambient light, and you can actually, if you're not unlucky and you shoot at the same moment, obviously you have to switch off the cell, then you can have a very close by setup, and this one is completely independent. Okay. Color checker card. I do it the basic way. I trust our lights. That's probably the easiest answer. What I do, I use gray cards. In this situation, it's all, I trust these light shapers, but sometimes I work as well. Let's say, oh, maybe here we have an example. Could be that this one is the main light coming through the acrylic. It could be that I work indirectly, and then I, of course, don't have it on the controller, or I go in location, they have funny painted walls, so maybe what's coming back from a wall could have a color temperature shift. So what I do, when I set up the light, I put the color checker there, and I just make a gray balance. I just tell my camera, by the way, this is gray, this is neutral gray. I don't take the white for this, I don't take the black for this, I take something that gives me an RGB value of something like 120, 130, so in the middle of the exposure, because there the gradation is the steepest, and there I can make it the most accurate way. But I don't use the entire color checker with fancy calibration software. Thanks to the quality of our lights, if I tell the camera, this is gray, problem solved. Sometimes I forget it. I do it later, and then I modify the shots, but this is absolutely good enough. What color temperature set is on the zeros? Let me check quickly. I can consult the software for this. Weißabgleich, I set it to 5,850 Kelvin, 5,850. So slightly higher than you expect. But like this, we get a warm tone. But it just came from the gray balance. So again, 5,850 Kelvin. Okay. Okay. Somebody asks when he was shooting, he or she was shooting e-commerce. The biggest issue was neon-colored clothes. And reflective strips and shoes. Yes, I mean, that's as well what I said. Sooner or later, we have to customize the light a little bit. What you could try with neon colors that actually start sparkling a little bit, that you have, what I use sometimes just next to the camera, like a UV attachment, that you just add a little bit of UV light that gives this extra sparkle to to these colors. But of course, we are going there a large step into customization of the light. Okay, but if maybe this is well a question of how you communicate this with the client. If it brings you all kind of fancy stuff, different, these fluorescent colors, glitter shoes or whatever, sooner or later you have to tell them, okay, if you want to have 20 shots in 1 hour, we have to make probably too many compromise on the light quality. But if you give me just, let's say, 2 more minutes per shot, I can quickly put the mirror there. I can quickly switch on my UV attachment here. You can, instead of having a 3 minutes, you can spend 5 minutes on it, make a variation, and so the more specialized the object becomes, the more, of course, you have to work more carefully with the lighting as well. For example, if I take the shoes away and I put a red wine bottle there, it will not work. Okay, but a red wine or as well a translucent bottle will not work in this lighting setup. But most of the time, you're not shooting one bottle. Most of the time, I'm approached by a client and they tell me, okay, I have 120 red wine bottles. Then, of course, I start differently. But then as well, I set up my lights in a way that I can shoot all the bottles, of course, making some compromise. But if you really get fancy surfaces, of course, sooner or later, we have to spend a little bit more time on it. Instead of softboxes from behind, should we use the reflective, the reflector on the light? So instead of having a softbox here, can we use just a reflector? Yes, if you have behind the acrylic. Let me tilt the camera quickly. Okay, so somebody wants not to use here a softbox, but just a normal reflector. And you can do this, but not over the short distance. Because over the short distance, I will have a ball of light here, and the corners will be dirty, dark gray. Okay, so if I make the corners bright, I will have much too much light in the center. And then again, it will not be, obviously not clean. So in this, because I wanted to have the setup quite compact, so that's why here I have just 20 centimeters from the softbox. Softbox has more or less the same size like the acrylic. And like this, I can illuminate it evenly. And if you want to use a normal reflector, you have to put it far away. The important thing is that no matter how I do it, that you get the even illumination all around the acrylic, because I don't want to overexpose any part of it. Good. So let me check. Yes, the question screen is empty, which means it's time to flip over to the fashion set. I want you to see the camera, so that's why I go a little bit further back with this camera. All right. No, actually, aber seht schon, was ist. Okay, good. Thanks. Put this softbox away. Exactly, good. The beauty is I can use the same cable. I'm using a faster camera, so no longer my medium format camera, but I'm using a mirrorless full frame camera here with a focal length of 105 millimeters. So it's actually a zoom lens, 105 millimeters. Why such a long lens? I can use it because I have a long studio, and when the camera is on that height, again, I come in a very narrow picture angle over this acrylic. Okay, so this acrylic, it's the same trick like before. This acrylic, the floor under Tanya will be white because it reflects the background. Okay, so that's the trick. And of course, I can work with less background behind her. If I take the camera on a short distance, the angle is more aggressive, and I shoot almost my entire white background. And the more white background that I'm shooting, the more the light is coming back to her, and especially because she's wearing something white. Okay, here as well, I go for the worst case. I don't go for the easy way. I really would like to show you how to shoot white fashion, a white background. So I have to make sure that the background does not bounce back too much light onto her. So that's why with a long focal lens, for example, this wall here has two functions. First of all, it fills in a little bit, it makes the background more even, but at the same time, it protects her from any light coming from here. Okay, and the shorter the focal length, the more I have to pull this wall away, and the more this light hits here on her contours and breaks the contours. Good. So let me switch off these lights, the Zeros. Because I want to use, otherwise they fire as well with the cell. And this time I started on the main light. So now I think it's clear that this one is the main light, and this is the most tricky one to set up. So let's start with this one. It's a Para 88, and it's fully focused, as you can see on the focusing tube. It's all the way out, which means the lamp head is all the way in, and this allows me to focus the light. Okay, so it's not like a softbox that bam, everything in front of the softbox is illuminated. It allows me to focus the light. And where is it aiming to? It's aiming to here. So here, pretty much out of the set, I have the hotspot of the light. Okay, the reason will be clear in a minute, I hope. So let me switch here the software to Capture One, actually. So we're hiding focus software, and I'm opening Capture One, sharing this with you. So here we go. Let me check if this all works properly. Yep, okay, good. So, I give you the settings of the camera. Actually, you can read the settings yourself. Yes, I'm shooting at the 60th of a second, exposure time 60th of a second, f5.6, ISO 200, so quite average settings, nothing fancy. And I switch on. Now, I'm not working with the zeros anymore, so I don't know if you can see it behind the table. So Scorel 1600S. And I would like to start with one light only, and that's our para. Exactly, power setting, because otherwise you would ask later on anyway. 3.4. Okay, 3.4, quite low the setting, because of course my para is a very strong light shaper. It's a parabolic, and really puts the light where I need it. I can quickly go to full modeling light, and then I don't know if you can see this already, kind of. You see that I illuminate here the floor much more than actually her. Okay, so that's why I'm not aiming onto her directly. I rather aim to this area. Let me go back to normal modeling light and take a first test shot. All right, so how does this look? Right, okay. I should reposition my camera. Just to be sure, I changed batteries before, and of course I moved the camera when I did so. All right, good. Put in the center. Oops. I want to shoot one picture only. So, single shot. One more. Good. All right. So, how does it look? Right. Okay, it's just the main light. Huh? So you see, for example, that the floor is not properly illuminated yet. So it's just dark, dirty gray. And what you see as well is that the face is quite somewhat darker than the hands. And I think that's the key point about the entire set. I'm compensating. Later on, I will have the top light, I will have this one, again, that's responsible for the general illumination, and the most logical light is a light that comes down from the sky. Okay, I don't want to have too much side lights, because these side lights, they look too much like an artificial light studio. So I try to have a kind of a naturally looking light, and I would like to give, even when it's low contrast, I would like to give the light a certain direction. Okay, and this light over there is responsible for this. But of course, that's just a normal softbox, and it's maybe 1.5 meters to her head, and maybe let's make it easy, 3 meters to the feet. I know she's bigger than 150, but let's make it easy for me. Okay, so we have double the distance to her feet than to the head. Double the distance according to the inverse square law means that I have here two f-stops more than down on the feet. And that's why I illuminate the setup unevenly with a focus at the lower end, that I can work with this top light later on. Okay, and of course, in the end, it's about balancing the two lights. But the idea is something else than here, that we actually have this top light that illuminates the entire set, and then we compensate the unevenness with the para. And that's the big advantage of the para. Okay, we can as well work here with the softbox, but then we really have to tilt this softbox in a quite crazy angle. It's in the end, it's almost like horizontally, because if the softbox is horizontal, of course, as well, I would have a little bit of a light fall off towards the head of the figure, towards the head of Tanya. All right, but the para just allows me to do this more precisely, thanks to the shiny interior and the possibility to focus or defocus the light. Right, okay. This is the theory. In practical, I would like to show you the top light only. So para off, top light on. Sharing screen. No, that's going to be this one. Exactly, so we had this before. So that's the para, and then I press the button again. Yep, so only top light now. Yes, okay. So you have seen before, so that's the one, no, not that. This is the one before. Darker head, compare the head, the skin of the head with the skin on her hands, okay? You see clearly the light fall off. and then I go on the top light, it's the opposite. Okay, now the head is brighter and the hands are darker. So if I combine them, I have a nice direction in the light and a mostly even illumination. So I leave the screen sharing on, shoot the next photograph. No background yet, but the main lights in combination. Okay, so it's quite evenly lit, but we see, let me zoom in, we see clearly here the texture everywhere, even the little wrinkles. Talking about if you cannot analyze the file very, very precisely, if you see, for example, a difference between the area where the buttons are, there we have a double layer of white, and this can be really very bright, but then just left of it or right of it, we have just one layer of this blouse, and then below the skin. And if we see there a difference in whites, then we know that my exposure is not burned. Or if you see little wrinkles, like just now on the picture left of the buttons, this guarantees that I have a proper exposure of the entire set. Where's the tricky part? The tricky part, no, let me mention something else. It's important that we go for this uniformity in exposure. Because if I allow that the light fades away down on her body, of course, it makes the jeans darker. And then somebody orders it, and immediately they have a return, because they order a bright blue jeans, they receive a dark blue jeans. So this, we can almost call it boring. You know, it's boring photography. It's strictly documentary photography, but it must be super, super accurate. Okay, that's why I have to take care. That's why I worry about the light that shows the material as beautiful as possible, but I cannot work with any fancy spot effects or high contrast, because I have to, to document. That's my most important job, to document what's in front of my camera as accurate as possible. Good. So that's why I go for an even exposure. And now the tricky part on this white on white is here, her left shoulder on the picture on the right side, because I'm going to work on a white background, so that I have a proper separation from this white to the background white. The background is hidden back there. Switch it on. It's a 90 by 120 millimeter softbox. Let me give you the numbers. 3.4 on this one, power setting. 4.3, so about 1 f-stop more on the top light. Here I have a 6.3, so I have 3 more stops in the background. Why? Because I use again one of my strange angles. This softbox, I bring it to you a little closer. Just at the end of the cable. And I stop sharing the screen for a second. Right. So this softbox is not straight on the model. This softbox, or on the background, this softbox is angled away. Let me switch it off, otherwise it's becoming too bright. So I angle it away more, pretty much in this angle. Okay, so it's more focused towards, let's say, the camera or maybe the laptop. And I use the light fall off, I use the edge transfer of the softbox to have the background evenly illuminated. But tilting the softbox away from the background, of course, costs a lot of power, because most of the power hits here the black wall. Now you don't see the black wall, okay? Right, okay? So most of the light hits here. That's as well why the black wall is here, that she doesn't get any unwanted backlight, because it would create a white contour on a white background, and that's of course a no-go. So by tilting it away, I can make it even on the background, that it's not much brighter on the left than on the right. And the black wall is there to protect Tanya from this light. So let's put it back there. So that's the reason why it's on a higher power setting. So here, not on the background, more away. Always a good thing either to ask her or to go here quickly. I don't see anything of the softbox. And then I want to solve the problem with 3 lights. 3 lights only. Okay, that's why I do not add another softbox on this side. You have seen it before already. So here, just a big white wall. Recycling some of this light, hits here, comes back, and this little bit of reflection I get from here actually allows me to illuminate my background evenly. So, right. So it's time to see this light only. Switch this pack off. Check as well, shooting the lights one by one is as well a good way to check synchronization, sharing screen, window. Okay, I want to show you this. Okay, there we go. All right, good. So you see how dark actually she is. Of course, far underexposed. Nevertheless, the floor, the acrylic, already shows some brightness. And on purpose, you could say, or you could ask yourself, doesn't he have a bigger acrylic? Yes, I have bigger acrylics, but it's very nice to let you see the difference between the acrylic she's standing on and the white underground, which is not covered. It's super white paper. It's even shiny a little bit, but it turns dark gray. So if you shoot such a white on white fashion shot on white paper, you have to throw a lot of light on the floor. And of course, this light bounces back onto the model and is always out of control. Or you need a lot of light next to her shoes. And then you, of course, illuminate as well the shoes in a way. And again, this is the easiest way to have her standing on a white or almost white surface without having to put there any light at all. The background looks, maybe we have to adjust the background brightness a little bit later on, but I will have this amount of light on the background and I will add this, I will add this amount of light to the background, which is coming from my main lights. And of course, I have to adjust the exposure on the background that it's correct when all the lights are on. So I cannot take care of the background exposure with this light only. Okay, if this light is already white and I add more light, I will have a far overexposed background, and then this light again will hit her. And you know the story, we have overexposure, we have flare, we have tons of problems. All right, so everything on, everything synchronized, which means next test shot. Right, okay, good. So I could go a little brighter here on the background. Maybe I didn't reposition this properly. Maybe I was a little bit too far. So I destroyed too much light. So I just bounce it back again a little bit. I think it was more like this as well before. So again, not touching, or not yet touching the power settings, just the angle of the light. Shooting it again, this time from the computer. So this should have an influence on the background's illumination. Yes, okay, good. So now it's cleaner, and let's have a look at this problematic point. Let's have a look up here, and we have, yeah, it's actually it's not too bad. We already have a clear difference. Down here, it works perfectly. Okay, here we, also on the arm. Sorry, you don't see my cursor. On the arm, on the side of the arm, I have a perfect separation. On the top of the shoulders, it's acceptable. It's not very, very clear. So I might just give the background a tiny little bit more. Again, not touching the power, just getting a little closer to it. This immediately gives a little bit more light on the background and the clear separation as well up there. Let me check this. Yes, okay, perfect. Okay, so you see, it's really, at the end, if it looks more or less I would not touch the camera anymore, okay, to make too many crazy things. Oh, I need more f-stop, less, whatever. At the end, especially such a critical shot, white fashion on a white background, depends on, in the end, just tenths of an f-stop, okay? Sometimes I do this with the power. If I really, really like the appearance of the light, I might do it on the power, but in this situation, I mean, I don't really like the light on the background. It's just has to be white. So I'm not changing the characteristic by tilting it. So maybe I can do this much faster by just playing a little bit with the angles. Good. So what did we do so far? Because until now I spent much too much time on this single shot, but I do this once. Okay. And now, of course, we can shoot this fast. In the most of the e-commerce production that I see, most of the time there are 2 or even more models rotating. So while I'm shooting Tanya, the next one is already getting changed. So I press the button like 20 times, bam, next, 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 next. And which means I'm shooting much faster and a much higher pace than here. Nevertheless, it's important that when I press the button 20 times, that from a technical point of view, all the 20 photographs are identical. I can use them. So my client or the art director most of the time sits here and says, okay, it's picture 7, export, online, bam, done. Okay. So it's very important that I can rely on my setup, shoot 20 shots. Technically, it's always the same. Manual focus. The light does the same color, same exposure, no black frames, and so on and so on. So I shoot on a very fast pace, my 20, 30 pictures, whatever, and then next one, next one, next one, next one. Like this, I can squeeze the models the best possible way, okay, because they have to work and they give me many, many pictures over the day. And that's exactly what I want to do now. So I spent too much time, of course, for demonstration reason now on this first set. But how does it work from now on? It works on, let's say, normal surface like the blue jeans. It works as well on something very critical like the white blouse. It works on the face. By the way, last thing about the lighting, you see these clamps here? They are ready here to mount here a fill-in light. I didn't know exactly what Tanya brings. Now we decided to go for this white blouse. And of course, what I see on the shadow side is just a perfect, also on the picture on our left side, is just a perfect darker rim, okay? So it perfectly separates her on this side from the background. That's why when she's wearing something that bright, I don't need any fill-in light here. If we would have decided, if we would have gone for a darker outfit, I might probably have put here just another white panel, pretty much the same, like adding or taking away the fill-in light on the shoe setup. Okay, but I leave it like this because I like it. And now I'm going behind the camera and shoot a couple of shots. Let's take these away because I would like to have a clean thumbnails later on, a clean contact sheet. I'm going now on the camera. I'm going faster as well. Not single frame, but I'm going for continuous shooting. All right, and let's say we go for something like 40, 50 shots. So I always take series of 2 photographs. You know, that's the most tricky and the most difficult thing for the power pack, for the lighting equipment. If I go on a continuous super fast shooting, the power packs are always charged to the same level. But if sometimes I wait a little bit and then I make it fast, then I wait a little bit, then I make it fast. So this is the tricky thing for my equipment. So let's shoot it like this. I will get 50 amazing poses from Tanya, and let's torture our setup a little bit. Let me check the focus again. It would be a pity if we make 50 shots out of focus. Yes. Okay. Are you ready? There we go. Wait a little longer. Okay. And the last one. Good. Okay. So those that know me, I would never shoot like this. Okay. I'm a slow shooter. But look how beautiful. Okay. Every single shot is ready to go online now. Okay. Not the minor difference in exposure. All the shots are ready to go. I can simply choose the best face. Oh, I was just afraid that it's unsharp, but yes, it is sharp. So I just can choose the best pose, but I'm not depending on any technical issues. So if I scroll here through all my shots, it's just the way a contact sheet should look like. All right. And like this you can work and make e-commerce production. Okay, good. Let me. It's the wrong one. Okay, good. Sorry, pressed the wrong one. Okay, so what you have seen before, that's the way it should look like. So, and we can do this with a Scoro. We do this every day. So the camera was set on something like 7 or 8 frames per second. With the Scoros, I can do this all day long, all year long. Okay, so it's this guy never gets tired. It's really the models, the camera. Sometimes even just storing the picture takes much more time. This is the limitation. But on the lighting side, there are no limitation. I shoot as much as I want. All the pictures, you have seen it. All the pictures are perfect. No color temperature shift. Once I adjust my light perfectly, you shoot as many pictures as you want on a day production, and that's how e-commerce photography should work. No technical issues, lots of pictures out of camera, online the next minute. All right, so let me check on questions. So we start here. So somebody has a studio of 5.7 feet wide and 10 feet long. Which feet into meters, that I have an idea. It's about 3 meters, so 2.5 by 3 meters about. Should I paint my walls gray? Yes, I think you should paint your walls gray unless you want to work if you like too much indirect lights. Indirect lights can be nice, but only when I want it. Okay. So if you have the studio walls gray, I think that's a very good compromise. My studio is larger than yours. The studio walls are still gray. They are quite bright gray, not dark. If you go, I was once working 1 week in a black painted studio, and on Friday evening you really have a depression. Okay, so from a photographical point of view, yes, you should paint your studio black, but it's just no fun to work there. Okay, so gray absolutely works. If you work at a reasonable distance with your light to the model, you can forget any indirect light coming back from the walls. However, if you want to push indirect lights, if you want to work with diffused indirect lights with enough power on your power packs or as well on your zeros, you can still do it. Of course, you cannot do this with black walls anymore. So yes, gray walls make a lot of sense. Make sure that the gray is neutral. Okay, that it's not like cold gray or warm gray, that the color temperature is not modified if you have to deal with indirect light. What material of the black wall? Just paper. That's just paper. All right, I just cut a background paper in half, and I use it to increase contrast, but it's just a paper background. On what kind of construction do you fix the upper light? I can show it to you. Yeah, I just hang it down from the ceiling. Can we see it, Tanya? Yeah, okay. So it's just, there was a huge area light was up there before, and we actually do not produce these anymore. but it was just a very simple way for me to have a light up there. But of course, as well, with a huge boom stand, you can do the same. As you see, I just hang it down from the ceiling. Okay. The white background is equal lit exposure. Yes, the background should be as even as possible. So in this situation, so if you want to go very precisely, I of course moved light, so I'm not that precise on the way anymore. But if you set this up for the first time and after this, it's a no touch. Okay, so I try to have in the corners like a 250, 250, 250, 250, maybe 255. What's a no-go is below 240, because then it starts to get dirty. And as well, a no-go is 255, because 255 doesn't give you any information. It can be 5 f-stops overexposed. You still get a 255 because there's no more than than pixels in your camera that are full of light. There's no more, otherwise you get other effects. But to have the background as even as possible and as close as possible, I would say to a 255, and then you're really, really on the safe side. If you do it visually at the beginning, if it's white, you have to meter it precisely. However, if you cannot do this, I always start with a gray background first, because if it's a gray background, you can very easily see if it's perfectly evenly lit, and then when it's even, then I approach white. Right, okay. Why 6/6 of a shutter? My continuous light is so low, it doesn't really matter. On any let's say mirrorless cameras or DSLRs as well, I don't push them to the limit, okay? Because they are not. We have a curtain shutter, okay, or an electronic shutter, and the shorter you go with the exposure time, the more you might run into problems with synchronization and so on. So what I do, I choose a shutter speed that makes sense. Let's say most of the time it's between a 60th and a 1/25th of a second. The test shot I do, I press the button without any ambient lights. Of course, I mean, here I have a crazy light. I have a crazy light here that illuminates the entire scene. Of course, this would be off. And then I press the button. And if if my picture is just black, then I know I'm only shooting with my flashlights, and then it doesn't matter if it's a 1/25th, a 200th of a second, a 30th of a second, because it's flash only. Even when she moves fast, I don't have to be afraid, even with a 30th or a 15th of a second, I don't have to be afraid that I get any blurred, any motion blur in the photograph, because the flash is so unbelievably short. I was shooting now with a 2600th of a second. Okay, so even if the shutter speed is a 60th of a second, the exposure time, which is responsible for freezing her movement, is a 2600th of a second. So as long as I'm not going into any crazy values, absolutely sufficient. Talking about crazy values, join me in 2 weeks from now. Then we do exactly this. We will have a dancer here, and we will start mixing continuous light with flashlight. And then I work with shutter speed that allow the continuous light, which is going to be a LED f160, to be visible in the photograph. So we will capture movements in the photograph 2 weeks from today. Okay, we talked about this one. Isn't the 1/6 of the studio affected by the other lights? No, it's not. Maybe now the crazy light I set up to that allows me to film it, maybe, but I didn't see anything. Why not 100th of a second to freeze properly? 100th of a second on the camera. Forget about the camera. The camera does not freeze anything here. Okay, the camera opens quite a long time, and then the flash, bam, super short flash, 2600th of a second, and then the camera closes. Okay, shutter speed is given on the camera is irrelevant. Exposure time is not the shutter speed. Exposure time is given from the flash, and that's a 2600th of a second. So as I said before, 100 of a second, 200 of a second, 60 of a second, result is the same. Don't mix up shutter speed with exposure time. Could we replace the para with an octa? Yes, you can replace the para with an octa. But as I said, if you have the para, now I can move it. If you have the para at the same angle like the octa, we would have much more light on her face, and then we would clearly have a fall off if we go down the body. Okay. And the other light, the softbox from the top comes from the same direction, so we would definitely run into the problem that we have probably here, that the blouse would be too bright and the jeans would be too dark. Okay, so yes, you can take the octa, but not in this angle like the para right now, but it would be more or less almost like horizontal, almost like the one over the shoes. And because I need somehow to bring more light down to the feet or to the shoes of the model. Otherwise, I have a very uneven exposure over the entire figure. And uneven means nothing else than an interpretation of the shot. But that's what I said before. I cannot interpret this creatively. I have to show as it is. So I have to deal, or I have to aim to a super even illumination. Hi, can you compensate a low room height? How can... Okay, somebody has a lower studio, so can't go that high with the softbox. If your ceiling is not black, work indirectly. Okay, so this light up there is not really super controlled. Okay, it just poof, the light goes a little bit everywhere. So if you have a ceiling that's maybe, she's let's say 170, we have 30 centimeters here. So here we have 2 meters. Her head is on 2 meters height. If you have, let's say, 1.5 meters, so this is a total of 3.5, you could easily work indirectly and replace the softbox with an indirect light. So this would be another option. Okay, that's the one I just answered. No, I don't use the para, so it's about the position of the para. No, it's fully focused. The small paras, the 88 para and the 133, they have a slightly more textured surface, so they always diffuse the light a little bit more. So when I want to work with the spot effect of a para, of the small ones, then I fully focus it. It's still not too aggressive. Like, let's say on a big para, on the 177, for example, it might be too spotty already down on the feet. But an 88 or a 133 has always an acceptable amount of diffusion. So that's why I'm not afraid of focusing it completely. It's on focus position, yeah, it's on 9.5, so it's really all the way in, as aggressive, as spotty as possible. It's still not too aggressive, and as you have seen before during the setup, it exactly does what I want. It maybe gives 1.5 stops more down on the feet and allows me to work in combination with the top light. What light can I use in the studio? Broncolor you can use in your studio. Okay. I don't know. Yes, you can use most of the light in the studio, but take the best one. Okay. If you want to have good photographs, take the best light, and there is I have a clear opinion what this is. Right. So this was a lot of information. I hope it was useful information. If you would like to talk more about e-commerce photography with us, you have several options. Contact your local distributor, and they are trained as well. They have a big knowledge about our products, what product is doing what. Contact your local dealer. He will be very happy as well to explain you different light shapers, talking about different sizes of studios. He will as well probably be able to explain you a plan B or something that's really customized for your needs. On the other hand, we here at headquarters of broncolor, we offer as well consulting services. So if you think that you need a more specific consultancy, maybe on-site, maybe through the internet, contact us directly here and at the info@broncolor.swiss, And then we find out the best way of communication, and that you really get the setup, that you buy the equipment that really works best for you. Together we can talk about light, if it has to be a Para, if Octabox is better for you, what is the best light setup for your studio, for your needs, what are you shooting, what are your requirements, what kind of background, and so on and so on. It's a never-ending story. What I did here is just the classic thing: white background, even light, nevertheless interesting light, proper separation. So that's the starting point of our discussion. Let's put it that way, okay? And from here on, we go customize and find the best solution. So again, local dealer, or contact us here at headquarters, and we will find the best possible way that you are happy with your e-commerce productions. Good. So if there are any questions left, let me remind you again, to next Friday afternoon, 2 p.m. I will be here again answering your questions. Next week, Wednesday, another webinar. I will talk about continuous light. I will talk about the LED F160. I will talk a little bit about the physics behind this light and the physics behind reflector. So it's a little bit more scientific maybe as today, but then as well creatively how you can shape the light with the LED F160 properly, as we have done it here. And then in 2 weeks from today, LED F160 on the creative use in combination with the beautiful movements of a dancer here in front of the camera. Okay, that's it for the moment. Thank you very much for your time. I hope it was useful to spend this hour or a little bit more with me. Yeah, thank you very much. All the best. Bye-bye. Ciao.